The crystalline dome of the Grand Observatory pulsed with azure light as data streamed in from the farthest reaches of the Vraxi Empire. Monitoring technician Zelvos slouched in his gravity chair, his translucent appendages lazily manipulating the holographic controls. After 4 centuries of service, he had seen nothing truly interesting. Just the usual parade of primitive worlds with their predictable evolutionary patterns. Sector 87 Delta scanned and catalogued. He announced to the empty chamber, his voice reverberating through the quantum communication network. Moving to 88 Alpha. The massive scanning array. A network of satellites surrounding a hijacked neutron star, pivoted slightly, its sensors penetrating the vast emptiness of unexplored space. Zelvos began the standard pre-scan routine, already composing his end-of-shift report in his secondary consciousness. The alert chime startled him so severely that his crystalline form briefly destabilized, sending fractal patterns of distress across his surface. Anomalous readings detected, the system announced. Artificial transmissions from unregistered world. Zelvos straightened, his boredom evaporating. The holo-display zoomed into a small blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "Magnify and analyze," he commanded. The display expanded, showing cities, oceans, and unmistakable signs of developing technology. Radio waves, satellite signals, and most alarmingly, early attempts at interplanetary travel. Zelvos hesitated only momentarily before activating the direct link to the Council of Seven. Supreme Counselor Zeth Marin emerged from his regeneration chamber, his ancient crystalline form gleaming with cold perfection. The emergency summons had interrupted his 5th century of life celebration preparations, and his irritation manifested as crimson pulses beneath his translucent exterior. "This had better justify the interruption," he stated, gliding into the council chamber where the other 6 counselors had already assembled. The chamber itself was a testament to Vraxi's superiority, suspended in orbit around their dying star, harvesting its final energies. The walls shifted constantly, displaying real-time data from across their 3-galaxy empire. Honorable counselors. Monitoring technician Zelvos's projection appeared at the center of the chamber, his form diminished in accordance with hierarchical protocols. "I have discovered an unregistered technological species in Sector 88 Alpha. Another one." Counselor Drathvek sighed, the sound resonating with artificial harmonics. "How primitive are they this time? Still burning hydrocarbons." "That is the anomaly, Exalted One," Zelvos replied, manipulating his controls. "Observe." The chamber filled with holographic projections of Earth, its cities, vehicles, weapons, and rudimentary space stations. The counselors exchanged vibrations of amusement. "How quaint," Zeth Marin said, examining a projection of the International Space Station. "They believe this is space travel." Laughter, a sound like crystal wind chimes, echoed through the chamber. "Their projected development timeline is the true anomaly," Zelvos continued, displaying a graph. "Their technological progression is accelerating at 3.7 times the standard rate for carbon-based intelligences." The laughter faded. Junior Counselor Tarek Val, youngest at merely 800 years old, leaned forward. "That exceeds even our own pre-ascension rate," she noted, her voice carrying a hint of concern. "Perhaps we should study them more thoroughly before." "Before what?" Zeth Marin interrupted, turning his attention to her. "Are you suggesting these primitives pose some kind of threat?" Tarek Val's crystalline form dimmed slightly under his gaze. "Merely that anomalies warrant investigation." "Supreme Counselor, your caution betrays your inexperience," Zeth Marin replied. The other counselors pulsed with amusement at her discomfort. "I have personally overseen the integration of 17 species into our preservation initiative. All followed the same pattern." He gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show dozens of subjugated worlds, some pastoral, others industrialized, all clearly under Vraxi control. "They resist briefly, then recognize the futility of defiance against our superior civilization," he continued, moving through the chamber with the fluid grace of one who had long ago transcended physical limitations. These humans will be no different. Tarek Val attempted once more. Their information systems indicate unusual adaptability and... Enough. Zeth Marin's interruption carried the weight of 2,000 years of authority. The chamber temperature dropped several degrees as his irritation manifested physically. I will not have my celebration delayed by baseless concerns over primitives who have barely left their atmosphere. He turned to the council secretary. Add this Earth to the preservation initiative. Priority level 3. No urgency. We will make first contact according to standard protocols. The holographic display zoomed outward, Earth diminishing to a tiny blue speck before disappearing entirely. Zeth Marin's form relaxed, the crimson pulses fading. And schedule a disciplinary review for monitoring technician Zelvos, he added. His interruption of council business for such a mundane discovery suggests he requires neural recalibration. As the council adjourned, Tarek Val lingered, studying the now empty space where Earth's hologram had been. Something about these humans troubled her, a feeling she couldn't articulate through the Vraxi collective consciousness. Do not concern yourself with lesser beings, Zeth Marin advised, noticing her hesitation. They exist to serve the Vraxi as natural law dictates. These humans will learn their place, as all others have. Tarek Val bowed respectfully, but as she left the chamber, she discreetly copied the Earth data to her private database. Perhaps there was something worth studying after all. The skies above Earth's major cities darkened simultaneously as 7 massive crystalline structures materialized in low orbit. Television broadcasts worldwide interrupted regular programming as billions watched in stunned silence. The vessels, each 10 kilometers in length, refracted sunlight into hypnotic, shimmering patterns as they hovered motionless. In the White House Situation Room, President Alicia Ramirez studied the live feeds with remarkable composure. "How many nuclear powers have gone to maximum alert?" she asked. "All of them, Madam President," General Okafor replied, her fingers dancing across a tactical display. "But nobody's itchy on the trigger yet. The UN Security Council has approved our proposed response plan." The president nodded. "And Dr. Constanza is ready." "As ready as anyone can be for first contact with an alien civilization," General Okafor said with a grim smile. "The Kazakhstan contingency has been activated. Central Park had been evacuated within a 2-mile radius. Though millions pressed against the police barricades, smartphones raised to capture humanity's first official meeting with extraterrestrial intelligence. News helicopters maintained the minimum safe distance, their cameras zoomed to maximum resolution. Dr. Elena Constanza stood alone on the great lawn, her simple blue suit a deliberate choice, formal enough for diplomacy, practical enough to run if necessary. The burn scars visible on her neck from her days as a combat medic in Nigeria served as a reminder that humanity was no stranger to conflict. "Neural shield operational," came the whispered confirmation through her earpiece. Beneath her skin, microscopic machines derived from a fragment of alien technology recovered in Kazakhstan a decade earlier hummed to life, creating a protective field around her nervous system. The air shimmered as a beam of light connected the hovering vessel to the ground 30 meters away. Within the column of light, a figure materialized, a towering being nearly 3 meters tall. Ambassador Krenvok stepped forward, his translucent skin revealing swirling nebula beneath, limbs moving with inhuman grace. "People of Earth," he began, his voice somehow perfectly understandable despite the absence of visible lips or conventional vocal structures. "I bring greetings from the Vraxi Ascendancy, guardians of civilization across 3 galaxies." Dr. Constanza felt the subtle neural pulse wash over her, a sensation like gentle pressure against her thoughts, urging submission, awe, compliance. The shield beneath her skin warmed slightly as it neutralized the effect. "The Vraxi recognize your species' potential," Krenvox continued, seemingly unaware that his neural manipulation had failed. Though you remain in your technological infancy, we offer you the privilege of inclusion in our preservation initiative. Under our guidance, your development will be directed toward beneficial ends. His arms spread wide, revealing intricate patterns flowing beneath his crystalline exterior. Witness a small demonstration of what awaits those under Vraxi protection. The air around him distorted as a miniature galaxy formed, stars and planets twirling in perfect harmony. This could be your future: order, peace, advancement beyond your primitive imaginings. Dr. Constanza stepped forward, maintaining precisely calculated eye contact. Ambassador Krenvox, on behalf of Earth, I welcome you. Her voice carried clearly across the silent park and to the billions watching worldwide. We appreciate your generous offer. She paused, noting with satisfaction the subtle shift in the ambassador's posture, the first indication of confusion. Clearly, he had expected a different reaction to both his neural pulse and his display of technological superiority. Before we discuss your proposal further, she continued, retrieving a small object from her pocket, Earth would like to present a token of our respect for this historic occasion. She extended her hand, offering what appeared to be a simple crystal cube no larger than a dice, a humble gift containing cultural information about humanity. Krenvox's appendage extended, engulfing the cube in what served as his hand. His internal patterns swirled faster as he attempted to access the data within, only to encounter encryption algorithms that his systems couldn't immediately decode. How interesting, he said, his harmonious voice betraying the faintest dissonance. Your species shows unexpected creativity. Behind the diplomatic facade, Earth's unified defense networks were quietly mapping every electromagnetic emission from the Vraxi vessels. In research facilities across the globe, scientists recorded and analyzed the crystalline structures, gravitational manipulations, and energy signatures. We look forward to further discussions about this preservation initiative, Dr. Constanza said, her voice revealing nothing of the strategic assessment underway. Humanity has always valued preservation, of independence, of dignity, of self-determination. Krenvox's form stiffened almost imperceptibly. You will come to understand the benefits of Vraxi guidance, he said, his tone shifting to one that might be used when addressing a precocious but ultimately ignorant child. Your species is young. In time, you will grow to appreciate your place in the universal order. As the ambassador dematerialized and the ships ascended back into orbit, Dr. Constanza maintained her diplomatic smile for the cameras. Only when she was secure in the underground facility beneath the park did she allow herself a moment of tension release. They tried a neural subjugation pulse. She informed the assembled world leaders via secure holographic link, just as we suspected they might. President Ramirez leaned forward in her virtual presence. And the gift. Dr. Constanza's smile turned genuine. By now, it's transmitting every frequency and code structure of their communication systems directly to our quantum analysis teams. They're so convinced of their superiority, they never considered it might be more than it appeared. How long before they realize? Asked the Chinese premier. General Okafor consulted her tablet. Preliminary assessment suggests we have at least 3 weeks before they detect the infiltration protocols. By then, we'll have learned more about their technology than they ever intended to share. Dr. Constanza nodded grimly. They expect submission. We've just given them the first hint that humanity doesn't follow the expected script. The Hall of Ascendancy pulsed with angry light as Ambassador Krenvox's holographic form knelt before the Council of Seven. The massive Dyson sphere harvesting energy from twin stars provided the backdrop through transparent walls, a constant reminder of Vraxi dominance over the fundamental forces of the universe. Explain your failure, Supreme Counselor Seth Marin demanded, his crystalline body radiating patterns of displeasure visible to all present. Exalted One, the humans displayed unexpected resistance to standard protocols. Krenvox replied, his projected form diminished in the traditional posture of submission. The designated representative showed no neural response to subjugation impulses. Counselor Drathvek leaned forward. Impossible. Level 1 subjugation protocols have been effective on every carbon-based species in our records. Nevertheless, Krenvox continued, the human showed no signs of the expected compliance cascade. The recordings of the encounter played in the center of the chamber, magnified, and analyzed from multiple perspectives. Junior Counselor Terekval studied the human representative carefully, noting minute details her colleagues overlooked. The gift they provided, she said suddenly. Has it been analyzed? Krenvox's form flickered with embarrassment. Initial examination suggested simple cultural data as claimed. However, subsequent security scans detected infiltration algorithms attempting to access our communication protocols. The chamber temperature dropped dramatically as Zethmirin's anger manifested physically. You brought a human infiltration device onto a primary Vraxi vessel. The security containment was activated immediately upon detection, Krenvox assured him hurriedly. No critical systems were compromised. Terekval rose, her position in the council strengthened by this vindication of her earlier concerns. This confirms my hypothesis. These humans are advancing more rapidly than our models predicted. They require more thorough study before inclusion in the Preservation Initiative. Zethmirin considered this, the anger patterns across his surface gradually subsiding. Your recommendation? Deploy the observation network, she replied. Thousands of microsensors in their key facilities. Full behavioral and technological assessment. Approved, Zethmirin declared. And Krenvox. The ambassador's projection trembled visibly. You will serve as field coordinator for this assessment. Consider it an opportunity to redeem your incompetence. 3 days later, Earth's atmosphere briefly shimmered as millions of microscopic Vraxi drones rained down invisibly across the planet. Disguised as common insects, each drone carried advanced observation technology and networked intelligence. What the Vraxi couldn't have anticipated was that humanity's quantum detection grid, hastily established after first contact, would identify these infiltrators within hours of their deployment. General Maya Okafor slammed her fist on the conference table in the subterranean war room beneath the Pentagon. The holographic display showed red dots spreading across a global map, each representing detected Vraxi surveillance devices. They're everywhere, she growled. Military installations, research facilities, government buildings, even civilian infrastructure. Dr. Constanza studied the pattern thoughtfully. This confirms our suspicions. They're conducting a full assessment before their next move. I recommend immediate neutralization, General Okafor said. We can deploy the EMP countermeasures within 6 hours. No, Dr. Constanza's response silenced the room. We don't destroy them. We use them. She walked to the central display, manipulating the holographic interface. If we eliminate their surveillance network, they'll simply deploy something more sophisticated. Instead, we feed them exactly what we want them to see. She turned to the assembled military and scientific leaders. Operation Phantom Stage begins now. Every facility with detected drones will implement the prepared deception protocols. Let them see apparent infighting, resource shortages, technological setbacks, everything that reinforces their perception of us as primitive and disorganized. Behind her, the main screen shifted to a global status board as commands went out to every continent. Within hours, elaborate performances would begin worldwide. Politicians arguing in supposedly secure rooms, scientists expressing frustration over failed experiments, military officers revealing defensive weaknesses in classified briefings. All while our actual work continues here, Dr. Sanjay Patel added, gesturing to the depths below them. The quantum-shielded facility beneath Antarctica, completely invisible to Vraxi surveillance, was one of several where humanity's true technological development proceeded undetected. Dr. Patel stood before the prototype gravitational manipulation device, the culmination of 3 months of reverse engineering Vraxi principles observed during their demonstration. The international team of scientists watched in tense silence as he initiated the activation sequence. Commencing test in 3, 2, 1. The device hummed to life, creating a localized distortion in Earth's magnetic field, small enough to avoid detection by conventional means, but a revolutionary breakthrough nonetheless. "It works," whispered Dr. Patel, his voice barely audible over the machine's resonance. "We've successfully replicated their gravitational technology." On the Vraxi monitoring station, Junior Counselor Terekval's private alert system detected the momentary disruption, a gravitational anomaly that should have been impossible for humans to generate. She studied the readings with growing concern, but after a moment's hesitation, deleted the alert from the system records. Some revelations were too dangerous to share, even with her own kind. The humans were advancing far more rapidly than anyone had anticipated, reproducing in months what had taken the Vraxi centuries to develop. If Zeth Marin knew the truth, he would order immediate intervention rather than study. And Terekval needed more data before determining whether these humans represented merely an interesting anomaly, or something far more significant in the grand pattern of galactic evolution. 6 months of observing fabricated human weakness had convinced Supreme Counselor Zeth Marin that the time for patience had ended. The Vraxi mothership, a behemoth 50 kilometers in diameter, materialized directly above Manhattan, its shadow plunging the city into artificial night. Smaller vessels positioned themselves over Beijing, Moscow, New Delhi, London, Cairo, and Rio de Janeiro simultaneously. "Let them feel the weight of our presence," Zeth Marin commanded from the central chamber, his ancient form glittering with anticipation. "I will personally deliver the ultimatum." Below, New York streets filled with terrified citizens despite evacuation orders. The United Nations building, designated as the meeting point, stood surrounded by a hastily assembled security perimeter. Inside the General Assembly Hall, world leaders gathered with uncharacteristic unity, their typical political divisions forgotten in the face of extraterrestrial pressure. Secret Service agents with specialized equipment scanned continuously for neural manipulation frequencies. A column of light appeared at the center of the chamber, coalescing into a 20-foot holographic projection of Zeth Marin. His crystalline form towered over the assembly, internal patterns shifting hypnotically. "People of Earth," his voice resonated with artificial perfection. "I am Supreme Counselor Zeth Marin, sovereign voice of the Vraxi ascendancy." He surveyed the room with calculated disdain. "Our assessment of your species is complete. We recognize potential, buried beneath primitive conflict and inefficiency. The Vraxi offer you the benevolence, inclusion in our preservation initiative." Displays activated around the chamber, showing idyllic worlds with advanced infrastructure. These species accepted our guidance. They enjoy peace, technological advancement, and purpose within the grand design. His form expanded, filling more of the room. "The alternative is isolation. Your world, alone and unprotected in a universe, with entities far less benevolent than the Vraxi." Dr. Constanza stepped forward, her neural shield operating at maximum capacity. "Supreme Counselor, humanity appreciates your attention to our world. However, self-determination remains our highest value. Perhaps we could discuss a mutually beneficial relationship instead." Zeth Marin's form flickered with patterns that translated roughly as amusement. "Your stubbornness exceeds that of any species we have encountered. Perhaps a demonstration will provide needed perspective." He raised a crystalline appendage. Throughout the mothership, gravitic generators activated. Observe the merest fraction of Vraxi capability. Across Earth, oceans responded to an invisible force. In coastal cities worldwide, waters receded suddenly before returning as 30-foot waves that crashed against shorelines. The effect was carefully calibrated, powerful enough to demonstrate control over fundamental forces, restrained enough to minimize casualties while maximizing terror. Screens in the General Assembly showed the simultaneous impacts: harbors destroyed, coastal structures damaged, but populated areas mostly spared. This display involved approximately 1% of standard Vraxi gravitational capacity, Zeth Marin stated calmly. "You have 7 Earth days to submit to the Preservation Initiative. Your formal acceptance must be unanimous and unconditional." The hologram dissipated, leaving stunned silence in the chamber. President Ramirez was the first to speak. "I believe that concludes diplomatic options." Beneath Geneva's Lake Léman, the Emergency Command Center buzzed with activity. 300 meters of water and specialized shielding protected the facility from Vraxi surveillance. Dr. Constanza entered the main chamber where leaders of formerly hostile nations sat shoulder to shoulder. On the central display, damage assessments from the gravitational attack scrolled alongside technical analyses. They showed their hand. Chinese Premier Liu whispered to President Ramirez. Both nodded grimly. General Okafor stepped to the podium. "The gravitational demonstration confirms what we suspected about their technology. More importantly, it reveals their tactical philosophy. Precise, calculated intimidation rather than overwhelming force." Dr. Patil activated his presentation. "The gravitational pulse gave us the final data needed to complete our prototype defenses. The Vraxi clearly believe we lack both the understanding and resources to counter their technology." "How quickly can we deploy?" asked the Russian president. "Protocol Prometheus is ready for activation," Dr. Patil replied. "The global network connecting our hidden research facilities is operational. Teams in the Himalayas, Pacific Ocean facilities, and asteroid bases are standing by." Dr. Constanza surveyed the assembly. "We have 7 days before they expect our surrender. I propose we give them an answer they don't anticipate." The vote was unanimous. That night, as the Vraxi mothership maintained its intimidating position above New York, Supreme Counselor Zeth Marin received the first planetary monitoring reports. "Human military forces are mobilizing," Krenvox reported, "but their weapons remain ineffective against our shields." "Their leaders are meeting continuously," added Terekval. "Internal disagreements are emerging between those who favor submission and those advocating futile resistance." Zeth Marin's form relaxed into patterns of satisfaction. As expected, their primitive social structures cannot maintain cohesion under pressure. By day 7, they will beg for inclusion in the Preservation Initiative. Terekval hesitated before presenting her final report. "We've detected unusual energy signatures from Earth's moon. The readings suggest some form of construction activity." "Evacuation preparations, no doubt," Zeth Marin dismissed. "Some futile attempt to establish a colony beyond our reach. Let them exhaust their limited resources in pointless gestures." He turned away, missing Terekval's subtle reaction to the detailed lunar readings on her private display, patterns that no primitive human technology should have been capable of generating. Something was happening on the dark side of the moon, something that defied all Vraxi predictions of human capability. For the first time in her centuries of existence, Terekval felt an unfamiliar sensation rippling through her crystalline matrix, the distant ancestor of what humans would recognize as fear. On the 7th day, the Vraxi mothership descended through storm clouds towards the Great Pyramids of Giza. Supreme Counselor Zeth Marin had selected the ancient monuments as the submission ceremony location, appreciating the symbolic power of humanity's earliest architectural achievements, overshadowed by Vraxi technological superiority. "Atmospheric entry complete," reported the navigation officer as the massive vessel broke through the cloud layer. "Approach vector to Earth monument establish." Alarm signals suddenly blared throughout the command center. Status displays flashed crimson as sensor data streamed in. "Multiple objects surrounding our approach vector," the tactical officer announced, crystalline form pulsing with confusion. Thousands of small devices in high orbit, forming a network around the planet. Zeth Marin moved to the central display, studying the readings with mild curiosity. Elaborate security measures for their submission ceremony. How quaint. Junior Counselor Terekval, now serving as his reluctant advisor, directed his attention to additional readings. "These are not merely ceremonial, Supreme Counselor. They appear to be functioning defense satellites with active scanning capabilities." "Primitive technology," Zeth Marin dismissed with a gesture. "Their scanners can't penetrate our outer hull." "There's more," Terekval continued, her tone conveying appropriate deference while highlighting the concerning data. "We're detecting human outposts on Mars, completely shielded from our previous scans, and the anomalous activity on the lunar dark side has increased exponentially." For the first time, patterns of uncertainty flickered briefly across Zeth Marin's surface. How could they establish Martian outposts without our detection? Our surveillance network covered their planet completely. Unknown, Supreme Counselor. But the evidence is irrefutable. Zeth Marin's uncertainty vanished, replaced by contempt. It changes nothing. Their primitive attempts at defense merely demonstrate their desperation. He turned to the weapons control officer. "Deploy the neural influence platforms. If they insist on resistance, we will subdue them at the most fundamental level." Within minutes, 12 obsidian spheres ejected from the mothership, positioning themselves in precise orbital arrangements around Earth. Each contained technology designed to broadcast subtle frequencies directly into human brains, gradually eroding resistance and independence over days of exposure. "Let them keep their trivial satellites while we enslave their minds," Zeth Marin declared, satisfied with this elegant solution. "Begin the influence protocol. Full planetary coverage within 72 hours. 3 days later, Terekval's entry into Zeth Marin's private chamber violated all hierarchical protocols, her crystalline form pulsing with alarm patterns, so urgent that the automatic security systems allowed her passage. "The neural platforms have been compromised," she reported without preamble, projecting security footage into the chamber. The holographic display showed something impossible: humans in advanced spacesuits boarding the orbital platforms. The suits incorporated technology that should have been centuries beyond Earth's capabilities, including gravitational manipulation fields and energy shielding. "These humans are not only resistant to our neural influence," Terekval continued, "they've reprogrammed 7 platforms to transmit encrypted data back to their facilities." "What kind of data?" Zeth Marin demanded, his form now radiating patterns of genuine concern. "Military protocols, star charts, outpost locations." Terekval's voice dropped. "They've accessed the complete strategic database for 3 galaxies." Zeth Marin's reaction manifested as a dangerous temperature drop in the chamber. How is this possible? Their technological level should make this incomprehensible to them, let alone achievable. "Unknown, Supreme Counselor. But there's more." She hesitated before displaying the final piece of evidence: energy signatures from Earth's moon showing unmistakable patterns of faster-than-light drive testing. "Impossible," Zeth Marin whispered, using vocal communication rather than the quantum network for the first time in centuries, a sign of profound disturbance. "They can't have developed FTL capabilities from a single observation of our technology. The evidence suggests otherwise." Terekval replied carefully. "The humans appear to be significantly more adaptable than any species we've encountered." In the secure command center beneath Mount Fuji, Dr. Constanza and General Okafor watched as Vraxi military data decrypted before their eyes. The quantum computers, developed using principles gleaned from First Contact, processed the stolen information at speeds impossible 6 months earlier. "We now have locations of every Vraxi outpost in 3 galaxies," General Okafor confirmed, her expression simultaneously exhausted and triumphant after days without sleep. Dr. Constanza studied the galactic map with its thousands of highlighted points representing Vraxi installations, and the neural platforms. Completely neutralized and repurposed, Dr. Paddle reported from his station. The Vraxi significantly underestimated both our resistance to their neural technology and our ability to reverse engineer it. Dr. Constanza moved to the window overlooking the cavernous underground hangar, where engineers made final adjustments to Earth's first faster-than-light probe. The sleek vessel incorporated principles the Vraxi thought impossible for humans to grasp within centuries. "Send the scout ships," she ordered, her voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. "It's time to take the initiative." Across the room, technicians transmitted coordinates to the hidden fleet positioned on the dark side of the moon. 12 experimental vessels, smaller than Vraxi ships but incorporating innovations their designers had never imagined, prepared for their first interstellar journey. Operation Prometheus is now entering Phase 2, General Okafor announced to the gathered leadership. From hunted to hunters. On the main display, a countdown began. Humanity's first deliberate venture beyond their solar system, not as supplicants to an alien empire, but as an emerging power ready to challenge Vraxi domination. In the observation deck, Dr. Constanza watched the distant shape of the Vraxi mothership still hovering above Earth, its once intimidating presence now seeming oddly vulnerable as humanity's true capabilities emerged from the shadows. "We were never the prey," she murmured. "They just didn't realize they were the ones being studied." 6 months after the neural platform incident, Earth's atmosphere shimmered with electromagnetic distortion as a previously hidden construction bay on the Moon activated its launch sequence. The Nemesis fleet, 12 obsidian vessels of distinctive human design, emerged from concealment, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. Aboard the flagship Defiance, Commander Alejandro Chen completed the pre-launch checklist, his movements deliberate despite the emotions churning beneath his professional demeanor. The holographic image of his family, wife and twin daughters lost in Mumbai during the Vraxi title demonstration, remained fixed to his console, a constant reminder of why he had volunteered for this mission. "All systems nominal," reported Lieutenant Chimera from the tactical station. "Quantum disruption fields calibrated to Vraxi crystalline frequencies." Chen nodded, surveying the bridge crew, each selected from among millions of volunteers worldwide, each with a personal reason to confront the Vraxi. "Commence Operation Reckoning." Formation Delta. The 12 vessels accelerated as one, leaving Earth orbit and achieving a velocity that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. Their destination: the Kuiper Belt, where long-range sensors had detected a Vraxi battle group approaching. "They still don't know what we're capable of," Chen remarked to his executive officer as they watched the tactical display. "That's our advantage." Supreme Counselor Seth Mirren personally dispatched the punitive expedition from the Vraxi homeworld, his instructions to Fleet Commander Dres Toll leaving no room for interpretation. "These humans have shown concerning levels of adaptability," he acknowledged. "However, their primitive vessels pose no match for a Vraxi battle group. Neutralize their spacecraft and establish a permanent blockade of their world. The preservation initiative will proceed under direct military supervision." The Vraxi battle group, 20 massive crystalline dreadnoughts arranged in traditional domination formation, detected the approaching human vessels near Jupiter. Primitive design, Fleet Commander Dres Toll observed dismissively from his command throne. "No energy shields detectable. Minimal weapon signatures." He gestured to his tactical officer. "Destroy them quickly. Their debris will serve as an effective demonstration for the rest of their kind." The Vraxi vessels moved into attack position, their gravitational weapons charging. Victory was a mathematical certainty against such inferior technology. The Battle of the Kuiper Belt began with a humiliating Vraxi miscalculation. As their forward batteries targeted the human vessels, the Nemesis fleet suddenly fragmented, each ship executing maneuvers that defied conventional physics, corkscrewing through three-dimensional space, performing hairpin turns that should have torn apart their hulls, and accelerating at rates that would have killed organic pilots without the inertial dampening technology reverse-engineered from Vraxi designs. "Impossible," whispered Dres Toll as the human vessels danced between the energy projections of his superior fleet. "Their maneuverability exceeds our tactical projections by orders of magnitude." More shocking still was what happened when the Defiance absorbed a direct hit from a Vraxi gravitational cannon. Rather than disintegrating, the vessel's hull briefly rippled with iridescent patterns before stabilizing, somehow absorbing and dispersing energy that should have annihilated it. "They've adapted our crystalline matrix technology," the science officer reported in disbelief, "but modified it for application to carbon-based materials, a theoretical impossibility." Before Dres Toll could process this revelation, human vessels released their primary weapons, directed quantum disruption fields that targeted Vraxi systems with surgical precision. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Vraxi records, seeming to phase between multiple quantum states simultaneously. Vraxi shield systems, designed to repel conventional energy attacks, proved ineffective against weapons operating on principles their designers had never conceived. Ship after ship reported critical systems failures as the human attacks bypassed their defenses, disabling rather than destroying them. "They're not trying to annihilate us," Dres Toll realized with growing horror. "They're neutralizing our capabilities while preserving our vessels intact." The battle reached its climax when the Defiance, though damaged from multiple impacts, executed a maneuver that the Vraxi tactical system classified as suicidal. The human vessel accelerated directly toward the Vraxi flagship at maximum velocity. "Brace for kamikaze impact," Dres Toll ordered, preparing for the human commander's final desperate act. Instead, at the moment of certain collision, the Defiance vanished in a flash of light, leaving behind a temporary distortion in spacetime. Where did they? Dres Toll began, before alarms blared throughout his vessel. The Defiance had somehow reappeared directly behind the Vraxi flagship, inside its defensive perimeter. "Targeted microjump," gasped the science officer, recognizing a technology the Vraxi had theorized but never successfully implemented. "They've mastered controlled quantum teleportation." Before countermeasures could be deployed, the Vraxi flagship's hull integrity alarms activated. Somehow, human boarding parties had breached their crystalline structure despite supposedly impenetrable defenses. Security footage showed humans in advanced combat exoskeletons moving with precision through the corridors, their weapons emitting fields that temporarily disrupted the crystalline intelligence of any Vraxi they encountered. Commander Chen materialized on the command deck, standing face-to-face with Fleet Commander Dres Toll. In his hand, he held a small device that the Vraxi recognized with shock, a quantum entanglement communicator of human design. "Consider this a formal rejection of your ultimatum," Chen stated calmly. "The preservation initiative is hereby terminated." Before Dres Toll could respond, Chen activated the device. Both he and the entire Vraxi command crew dematerialized, reappearing aboard the Defiance as prisoners. Within 40 minutes, the battle was over. 7 Vraxi vessels had been disabled, their crews captured. The remaining ships retreated, limping back toward their core territories, with recordings of a defeat that would send shockwaves through the Vraxi Empire. As the human fleet regrouped, consolidating control over their captured prizes, Junior Counselor Turek Val, who had been monitoring the battle from an observation vessel at the edge of the system, sent an encrypted transmission directly to Earth, bypassing the standard Vraxi communication protocols. "The Council must know what you've done," the message read simply. But whether this was a warning or an expression of reluctant admiration remained unclear. Commander Chen stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching his fleet surrounded by their massive crystalline prizes. The photograph of his family seemed heavier in his pocket now, their absence undiminished by victory. "Phase 1 complete," he reported to Earth Command. "We now possess 7 intact Vraxi vessels and their crews, returning to lunar base for analysis and debriefing." The Nemesis fleet turned homeward, their Vraxi prisoners witnessing the impossible. A species that had leaped centuries of technological development in mere months, adapting and improving upon Vraxi principles that had remained unchanged for millennia. In the brig, Dres Toll's crystalline form had darkened with the Vraxi equivalent of shock. "How?" he asked when Chen visited him. "How did you advance so quickly?" Chen's expression remained neutral, but his eyes carried the weight of Mumbai's destruction. "You threatened our existence. Necessity is a powerful motivator." He turned to leave, then paused. "Your civilization forgot something important during your millennia of dominance, Fleet Commander. There is no greater catalyst for innovation than survival." In a converted aircraft hangar beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Sanjay Patel stood before the captured Vraxi admiral, now contained in a quantum isolation field. The alien's crystalline form had darkened to a smoky obsidian, the Vraxi equivalent of profound distress. 3 weeks of captivity had not diminished the Admiral's arrogance, but even he could not hide his reaction as human scientists methodically dismantled and analyzed Vraxi technology in his direct view. These tests violate 17 provisions of the Galactic Compact, Fleet Commander Dres Toll stated, his harmonic voice wavering slightly. A compact Earth never signed, Dr. Paddle replied without looking up from its holographic workstation. A compact your people never intended to offer us as equals. Most disturbing to the Vraxi prisoners was the central holographic display showing humans accessing the Vraxi Galactic database, schematics of planetary subjugation systems, star charts of territories spanning 3 galaxies, and most damning of all, footage of maintenance worlds where enslaved species toiled under neural inhibitors to extract resources for their Vraxi masters. Dr. Constanza entered, flanked by General Okafor and UN Secretary-General Amadou. They studied the footage in silence, amphibious Nari forced to mine underwater resources until their respiratory systems failed, then casually replaced. Gaseous foam entities compressed into painful solid forms to access mineral deposits in their home system. Once proud warrior Krell with their neural architecture limited to prevent independent thought. "We've seen enough," Dr. Constanza declared, her voice tight with controlled anger. "The Vraxi aren't guardians of galactic order. They're parasites. What is your intention?" Dres Toll asked, his crystalline surface pulsing with what might have been fear. "Your species lacks the capacity to challenge the full might of the Vraxi ascendancy." General Okafor smiled thinly. "The same way we lacked the capacity to defeat your battle group." The strategy session that followed would have been inconceivable to the Vraxi 6 months earlier. Humans planning not defense of their single world, but a multi-system liberation campaign. Rather than preparing for the inevitable Vraxi counterattack, humanity executed an audacious plan that Dres Toll dismissed as suicidal. Operation Liberation commences in 3 days, General Okafor announced to the assembled military and scientific leadership. Our stealth vessels will deploy simultaneously to 17 subjugated worlds. On the aquatic world of Hirel, the amphibious Nari had served as resource gatherers for the Vraxi for over 600 years. Their civilization's history had been systematically erased, their cognitive functions limited to basic tasks through neural implants, their young genetically modified to enhance harvesting efficiency. The Nari overseer, a Vraxi administrator named Pelkmore, registered an anomalous energy signature in the upper atmosphere, but dismissed it as a sensor malfunction. The Nari were too primitive to operate complex technology, and no unauthorized vessels had entered the system in living memory. Hours later, as darkness covered the primary harvesting region, submerged lights appeared in the deepest trenches, lights that pulsed in patterns that triggered something buried in the oldest Nari's ancestral memory. When the human envoys emerged from their stealth vessel in specially designed amphibious suits, the Nari initially retreated in terror. "We are not here to harm you," the lead human said, her words translated by a device that replicated the phonetic patterns of ancient Nari language, pieced together from records found in the Vraxi database. "We are here to show you the truth." A holographic display activated, showing the Nari as they had been before subjugation, a sophisticated civilization of philosophers and artists whose neural architecture had been forcibly simplified by their Vraxi protectors. More shocking still was footage of free Nari, who had escaped the initial subjugation, now living in a distant system undetected by the Vraxi. Similar scenes unfolded across 17 worlds as humanity offered alliance, technological exchange, and most importantly, freedom. On the silicon plains of Corvus, the towering Krell were shown the neural inhibitors implanted in their crystalline brains. In the hydrogen atmosphere of Miller, the gaseous Vom witnessed their ancestors' complex atmospheric cities, destroyed when they resisted Vraxi protection. When the Vraxi Central Network detected unusual activity across their empire, Supreme Counselor Zeth Marin initially dismissed the reports as isolated anomalies, Reality became impossible to ignore when simultaneous uprisings erupted across multiple systems, each utilizing technology bearing distinctive human design elements. In the majestic council chamber of the Vraxi homeworld, now divided into opposing factions, Junior Counselor Turek Val addressed her colleagues with unprecedented directness. "The evidence is irrefutable," she stated, projecting images of liberated worlds, disabled Vraxi control systems, and multispecies alliance vessels. The humans have not only resisted our technology, they've improved upon it, and shared these improvements with species we've subjugated for millennia. Councillor Drathvek rose in opposition, his crystalline form radiating anger patterns. "This contamination must be eradicated immediately. I propose complete sterilization of Earth and all worlds exposed to human influence." The debate grew increasingly heated until Terekval revealed her final evidence: direct communication between several senior counselors and human representatives, secret negotiations that had been ongoing since the Battle of the Kuiper Belt. "Some among us recognize what the humans represent," she said into the stunned silence. "Not merely a threat to our dominance, but an opportunity for genuine evolution of our stagnant society." The council chamber erupted into chaos as accusation and counter-accusation flew. For the first time in over 2,000 years, Vraxi raised energetic weapons against their own kind within the sacred chambers. As riots spread through the once perfect Vraxi cities, their long-range sensor networks detected an unprecedented development: a joint fleet materializing at the edge of the Vraxi home system. Human vessels flew alongside ships piloted by Nari, Krell, and other formerly subjugated species, all bearing a new insignia, an emblem of allied species joined in federation. The message they transmitted was simple: the era of Vraxi domination has ended. The era of galactic cooperation begins. Choose wisely. On the Vraxi homeworld, Supreme Counselor Seth Marin stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In 6 short months, humanity had accomplished what no species had managed in 3,000 years. They had shattered the foundation of Vraxi supremacy and rewritten the balance of power across 3 galaxies. How? He whispered to the empty chamber, his advisors having fled the spreading conflict. How could primitives achieve this? The answer came from an unexpected source: the ancient Vraxi historical archives, where records long suppressed revealed a truth that Seth Marin had never learned. The early Vraxi themselves had once been uplifted by a benevolent species that chose cooperation over conquest before the Vraxi betrayed and ultimately exterminated their mentors. History, it seemed, had found a way to balance the scales. The Grand Council chamber of the Vraxi homeworld had stood unchanged for millennia, a massive anti-gravity dome, where the walls themselves were living memory crystals. Now, for the first time in recorded history, it hosted beings other than the crystalline masters of 3 galaxies. Supreme Counselor Seth Marin, his once brilliant form now clouded with stress fractures, sat upon the seat of primacy with the remaining loyal counselors arrayed behind him. The chamber's architecture, designed to intimidate through scale and opulence, seemed to work against them now, emphasizing how few Vraxi remained loyal to the old order. The incoming diplomatic vessel, a hybrid design incorporating elements from multiple species technologies, transmitted its passenger manifest during final approach. Seth Marin studied it with increasing disbelief. Not just humans, but representatives from 22 formerly subjugated species, all arriving as equals rather than supplicants. "This is unprecedented," whispered Counselor Drathvek, one of the few hardliners who had survived the internal conflict. "No non-Vraxi has ever been permitted within the Grand Chamber." "We are beyond precedent now," Seth Marin replied, his voice lacking its usual harmonic perfection. "The humans have rewritten the established order in less than a standard year." When the massive doors parted, the delegation that entered moved with calm dignity rather than the expected subservience. Dr. Constanza led the procession alongside Commander Chen, Dr. Patel, and General Okafor, the architects of humanity's improbable ascension. Behind them came representatives of species the Vraxi had manipulated and exploited for millennia. The amphibious Nari with their fluid movements, the towering Krell with their silicon-based bodies, the gaseous Vom in their containment suits. Most shocking to the assembled Vraxi was the sight of Junior Counselor Tarikvold stepping forward to join the delegation rather than taking her seat among her fellow counselors. Her crystalline surface pulsed with patterns of conviction as she stood with the former subjects of the Empire. "You betray your kind," Drathvek accused, rising in outrage. "I honor our original purpose," she countered calmly, "before conquest became our defining characteristic." The chamber erupted in chaos until Dr. Constanza activated a small device that projected the complete unaltered history of Vraxi conquest across the memory crystal walls, including atrocities carefully erased from official records. Alongside these images rolled scenes from Earth's blood-soaked yet ultimately hopeful history, humanity's struggles, failures, and eventual transcendence of its darkest impulses. "We come not as conquerors," Dr. Constanza announced when silence finally fell. "Had that been our intention, your worlds would already be under our control." Instead, the humans presented their proposal, a new galactic accord based not on subjugation but genuine cooperation, leveraging the unique evolutionary advantages of each species. The agreement acknowledged genuine Vraxi achievements in art, science, and philosophy, while firmly rejecting their hierarchical worldview. "Your civilization has existed for thousands of years," Dr. Patel noted. "You have created wonders we can scarcely comprehend. But you have built upon a foundation of suffering that can no longer stand." Zethmarin's surface rippled with indignation. "You presume to lecture us on civilization. Your kind barely survived its own primitive conflicts." "Perhaps that is precisely why we are qualified," Commander Chen responded. "We remember our failures. We carry the scars of our mistakes. Your perfect society forgot the cost of progress." The tension held until an elderly Vraxi archivist, keeper of their oldest records, stepped forward with trembling movements. Her ancient crystalline form held patterns so complex they were nearly impossible to interpret. "There is precedent," she whispered, activating a memory crystal untouched for millennia. It displayed scenes the Council had never witnessed. The early Vraxi, smaller and less crystalline, being guided by another, now extinct species who had chosen cooperation over conquest. "The Vraxi were once the uplifted, not the uplifters," she explained, her voice carrying the weight of forbidden knowledge. "Before we replaced gratitude with entitlement." The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Many young Vraxi had never learned this foundational truth, that their own civilization had been nurtured by benevolent mentors, whom they had ultimately betrayed and destroyed in their quest for dominance. Hours of negotiation followed, punctuated by moments of near breakdown, as 3,000 years of hierarchical thinking collided with a new paradigm. Yet gradually, position by position, the framework of a new relationship emerged, one that would transform not just the Vraxi, but the destiny of 3 galaxies. As the historic treaty reached its final form, Zethmarin requested a private moment with Dr. Constanza in the ancient Garden of Reflection, a crystalline forest where the most significant moments of Vraxi history were commemorated. "In 3,000 years of uncontested dominance," he said softly, gesturing to the crystal trees recording all they had achieved, "we forgot something crucial that you reminded us of. True strength lies not in technological superiority alone, but in the ability to face challenges, adapt, and grow stronger through adversity." His once arrogant demeanor gone, he extended a crystalline appendage in an unprecedented gesture of personal respect. "Your species accomplished in months what might have taken us centuries to discover on our own. That true advancement comes not from control, but from connection." 1 year later, Dr. Constanza stood in the observation lounge of the Humility, the first joint species exploration vessel commissioned under the new Galactic Accord. Its diverse crew included reformed Vraxi, liberated species, and humans, all working toward expanding knowledge rather than empire. As Commander Chen gave the order to depart toward uncharted space beyond the former Vraxi territories, the ship's name became visible on its hull, written in the languages of 23 species. Beside her stood Tarek Thal, now serving as the Vraxi ambassador to Earth. Together, they watched the stars streak by as the vessel entered faster than light travel. Their reflections merged in the viewpoint glass. Was it worth it? Tarek Thal asked, referring to the tumultuous year of transformation. Some worlds still resist the new order. Some Vraxi factions refuse to acknowledge the accord. Dr. Constanza considered this. Earth itself was still recovering from the brief but traumatic Vraxi demonstrations. Many had questioned whether cooperation with their former would-be conquerors was truly possible. Progress isn't perfect, she finally replied. But it's better than stagnation disguised as perfection. As the humility accelerated toward the unknown, carrying the combined knowledge and diverse perspectives of 23 evolutionary paths, the ship's mission statement displayed on a crystal plaque in the main concourse. The strength of civilization lies not in dominance over others, but in the wisdom to recognize that diversity creates resilience. No species alone can perceive all truths or survive all challenges. Together, we venture forward, each contributing, all benefiting. The plaque bore signatures from representatives of all member species, with Supreme Counselor Seth Merins and President Ramirez's side by side at the top. A visual reminder that even the most entrenched pride can dissolve when faced with a greater vision of what might be possible. Behind them, a new generation of explorers, human, Vraxi, Nari, Krell, and others, prepared for humanity's greatest export to the stars. Not conquest or subjugation, but the hard-won wisdom that cooperation yields greater rewards than domination ever could.